Hello, my name is Abdul McWhorter, and I'm a consultant here at GRF CPAs and Advisors. Today we'll be talking about Acumatica ERP, and we'll discuss cash management and also reconciling cash accounts. And so today's agenda, we intend to cover three main topics, and they are processing cash entries. The next one will be performing funds transfers. And lastly, we'll talk about reconciling cash accounts. Okay. And so let's just go ahead and open up Acumatica. And before we get started, just let you know that uh, all of our work today will be focused in the banking workspace. Within this workspace is where all of our reports and forms and processes live uh, uh, to uh, to make sure we go through all of the demonstrations on processing cash entries, funds transfers, and reconciling cash accounts. And so let's just go ahead and get started. And the first thing we'll start with is how to create a entry in Acumatica. And so we'll go through and demonstrate two sides of the cash entry. One will be the cash entry of the disbursement type, and second, we'll show a demo of a cash creating a cash entry of the receipt type. And so before we get started, want to just take a look at the cash management preferences form. And that form lives here in the banking workspace under preferences. And we're going to take a look at this form to take a look at how our cash management preferences form has been pre-configured doing setup to make sure that we are set up to import bank statements correctly, and then also uh, once we process cash entries, we want those entries to automatically create a general ledger batch and post that batch. Okay, so we don't want the system just to generate the batch, but we also want the system to generate and automatically post it to the general ledger. So with that being said, let's go ahead and open the cash management preferences form. And what we're primarily looking at here is going to be under the posting and release settings area in the general tab. And as we said, we want to make sure that we select automatically post to general ledger on release. And then the other two selections we want to make sure is that we release AP documents from the cash management module. Um, and we can definitely dig into by hovering over and taking a look at the more info. Uh, and there you have a look at what we've selected and what the system will process for us. And then if you wanted to dig deeper, of course, into this topic, there's a link directly to the Acumatica knowledge base. And so these are the selections we want to see. And just a quick thing, and say you would deselect this box if, in the case that um, you wanted um, transactions of the cash type, the cash entry type, to once they're posted to not be released because there may be a review that needs to take place before those entries are allowed to be posted to the general ledger. You can deselect this box, and that way, once AP or AR forms, cash management forms are processed, they won't automatically post to the general ledger. They will automatically create a journal transaction, but that transaction will um, be left in the unposted status, and then will have to be reviewed and posted uh, from the actual journal transaction. So with that being said, we're going to make sure we select automatically post to general ledger on the release of those of these documents that in question. And then last, we're going to take a look at the bank statement setting form, and down at the bottom in the import settings. We want to make sure that our import bank statements to single cash account is selected. And similar to, well, like any other checkbox that you or different item you want to know about, you can hover over it, and then it gives you a more information, and then even all the way back to a link to Acumatica's knowledge base. But for the sake of this, we want to make sure that our import, that when we import bank statements uh, to a single cash account, and we'll go over why we selected that later on in the training, in the demonstration, excuse me, and we'll show it when we import a bank statement. So let's go ahead and jump right in, and we'll go ahead and demonstrate how to create a cash entry of the disbursement type. And in order to do that, we'll come to our cash transactions form. We'll select new, um, and that's okay. And what that was telling me is that when we were in the cash management preferences form, um, there were some changes that may have been made that may have needed to be saved. And so the system shows you that warning prior to leaving, and maybe not being able to update any changes that you were attempting to update on a certain form or report. But in this case, we see that all the check boxes that we needed selected, excuse me, are in fact selected. So let's just jump right into creating our cash transaction type, excuse me, cash entry of the disbursement type. So cash transactions form, we'll select a new, uh, select for a new cash transactions form to open. Here we'll specify what cash account. And in this case, what we're attempting to do is we're going to book a bank service charge we receive from our bank, and they're going to charge us $50. And so we're going to select the wholesale checking account. Um, we select the transaction date. In this case, we'll say June 15th. The financial period is automatically selected based on the transaction date by the system. Entry type in this case will be a bank fee. And you see based on the entry type, the disbursement receipt box is updated. And because the entry type is a bank fee, this is automatically deemed a disbursement of cash. And so in this case, we'll call this a bank service fee. Let's also use that description here in the description portion, and come down here to the transaction details tab, and we're going to add a line. And you see by default from the entry type, the description is filled in with a bank fee, and that's based on the entry type that we select. And also by default, the offset account that's selected for a bank fee is the bank services charges account. And so here we said the amount was $50. Let's enter that in the amount box. And then we go ahead and save it. And you see the system has saved the line that we created. And there it is for bank service fees. The header area, of course, is populated with the amount, $50. We see the transaction date, financial period, cash account in question, and the status here is still on hold. Okay, so this is similar to the in the separate, excuse me, in the separation of duties or roles, because Acumatica is role based. there may be a role that stipulates that one person creates this, and they take it from the creation of what we just did and save it, remove the hold, and send it status from on hold to balance. And so now at this point, uh, this transaction will be or can be transferred to a higher up or a different department that then reviews and approves and releases the transaction. To keep in mind, you can always add notes, and we'll add quick notes so we can see the effects of adding notes. And so once you add a note there, you see, excuse me, the note section is then highlighted, which of course signifies to any other person or persons or parties opening the or taking a look at this cash transaction that there is a note attached here. And in most cases, people will read it. And the same with files. We can attach any source file that we like to accompany this form. And so in this case, we reviewed it and we know there's notes. And if we want to connect files, we could, but everything is suffice for us. So we'll release the transaction. The operation has completed. The system lets us know. Um, the status has changed from balanced to released. And so now we'll go ahead and let's take a look at the financial details. Basically, we'll review the batch that was generated once we release this cash transaction. And so to do that, of course, we come here to the financial details tab under links to general ledger. We'll select the batch number. See the system then opens a journal transaction. And based on the parameters set in our um, banking preferences form, you see once we release the transaction, the journal transaction, once we released our cash transaction, this is in a release status, the system automatically created this general ledger transaction and automatically posted it. And so if we had deselected the checkbox, the system would have created this journal transaction, but the status here would be unposted. So that at that point, if you wanted to then review it again before it was posted, you can do that. But in this case, we see that the journal transaction was automatically posted on release of cash, the cash entry. Status is posted, transaction date and period correspond with what we selected. We see the debit and credit total of $50, which balances the transaction. We see here the accounts that were affected, and in this case, the company checking account was, uh, decreased by $50, and of course, the bank service charge was paid, with that $50. So let's go ahead and close that out. Excuse me. And now we'll jump right into, let's go back to, and we'll jump right into creating a cash transaction of the receipt type. So in this case, we want to book a transaction where we receive cash. So from the cash transactions form, excuse me, we'll select new, open a new cash transactions form. Let's specify the cash account. And so in this scenario, we'll say that on our savings account, we received some interest. And so now let's specify the day we received that. We're going to say June 16. The entry type selection now is interest. And you see the disbursement receipt box was by default recognize this entry as a receipt of cash. And that was based on the entry type that we selected. And so let's just call this interest earned. And in the description, we'll label it the same thing. Okay, now let's go down here, add a line. And if you see by default from selection of entry type, the description uh, matches the entry type. So in this case, it is interest. And then also here by default, by selecting the entry type of interest, our offset account defaults to the interest income account. And so in this case, let's say we receive $50 in interest from our savings bank, interest earned on our bank savings account. So we have the line populated and similar to well, exactly the same as the disbursement. Let's go ahead and finish the transaction. So let's save it. We see the status is on hold, so we have to remove the hold. Status is now at balance. We see all the information, amount populated, cash account being affected, uh, all of that information. So let's go ahead and release it. And so we see the status is now released. We'll come to the financial details tab and take a look at the journal transaction. And so there you have it. It has been posted, affected the cash sub ledger. Here's the general ledger account batch number. Here is the debit, which is the increase to our checking account because we received money. And there's the credit to interest income. And so this transaction is right in line with what we expected. Okay. And so with that being said, let's take a look at where we are and what we've done so far. So we've went through the process of creating two types of cash entries. The first one we created and released was a cash entry of the disbursement type. And after we created and released that entry, we took a look at the general ledger transaction that the system generated. And we also created and released a cash entry with the receipt type. And we then reviewed the general ledger transaction generated by the system upon post and release of the entry, the cash entry with the receipt type. And so now we'll continue to move into our next portion, which will be performing funds transfers. And so let's go back to our banking workspace. And of course, we talk about funds transfers and the frequency of funds transfers. And in most cases, during the everyday course of business, there may be a need to transfer funds from one account to another. Maybe that be between company or branch, or definitely to cover payroll, or uh, a number of reasons where an outlay of cash may be necessary, and then it may be necessary to transfer those funds, excuse me, from one account to the other, and then also keep a track of that transfer of assets from, excuse me, funds or assets, same thing, funds from one account to the other. And so we can also keep a track of that in Acumatica. And so how do we process that? And we'll go over that, and let's just create a quick scenario. So in this scenario, um, we want to purchase some new equipment and parts, and so we know the cost of the equipment and parts, and it's been approved. But the only thing we need to do is we need to transfer $25,000 from our wholesale checking account, and we need to transfer that amount to our equipment account so that um, the funds can be available for the purchase of equipment and parts. And so we'll do a few things. And the first thing we need to do is we're going to check the available balance of the source account and the destination account of the funds. And in this case, the source account will be our checking account. The destination account, once again, will be the equipment account or the equipment department checking account. And we'll do all of that review the balance of the accounts, and create the funds transfer from the funds transfer form. And so to do that, banking workspace, funds transfer, let's create a new record. Here, let's give it a description, and we'll say transfer 25K for parts and equipment. Okay. And so now we're going to take a look at the available balance of the source account and also simultaneously set up the transfer. Okay. And so in this case, we want to our source account, or where the funds will originate, will be our wholesale checking account. And you see, once selected, the system automatically then over here to the right gives us our available balance. And let's go ahead and you're going to add a document reference number, and we'll make that the same as our description. And then we'll come down here. We're going to put the amount uh, that we want to transfer, and in this 25K. And you see, once we enter the document reference number, the system then also populates the document reference in the destination account, along with the amount here is populated here in the destination account. So now the final portion of setting up our funds transfer and viewing the balance of our equipment account, we then select the equipment account. And there you see the available balance we have over there. The amount will transfer, and you see the status there of the funds transfer is on hold. So let's go ahead and remove the hold, and our status is now changed to balance. And of course, once again, this is at that point where notes and files can be added, and which are source documents or any other documents to help any other parties that may view this to understand exactly what the nature of this transaction is and is or was. And so in this case, if this needed to, once again, move up the chain, you can attach files and notes to help the approver then make that make that uh, make that choice. But in this case, we need to we've went through that process, and so everything is correct with the funds transfer, and we want to initiate it. So then we on the toolbar select release. The system lets us know the operation has completed successfully. Status has changed to released. We have a batch number that we can view, and let's go ahead and do that. And you see here on the journal transaction, the effect to the cash subledger. We see the head office or our wholesale checking account decreased by $25,000, and simultaneously our equipment account increased by that same $25,000. So that is the correct journal transaction that we need processed, and we see the status is posted. And so let's go ahead and close out our journal transaction. Okay, and so now we process the journal transaction, and now say we want to take a look and see how those that fund transfer is reflected in those two respective cash accounts. The way we do that is here under reports. Let's go to cash account details, and so we're going to fill out the report parameters. In this case, we're going to keep the from and to date. And of course, if you wanted to narrow your search, you know, you definitely can. But now we're going to select the equipment account, and let's run the report. And there we have it on the system opens the cash account details report, and you see here letting us know the module that was affected, the document number, the receipt, whether this was a receipt or a disbursement. In this case, this was a receipt of cash. Okay. And so now let's go back and take a look at our wholesale checking account, and we should see that disbursement of cash. And there it is for 25K. Same effects to cash subledger. And there you have it. And so we've covered performance funds transfers. And within covering that topic, we reviewed the balances. We showed how to review the balances of both the source cash account and the destination cash account. Simultaneously, you can then process the funds transfer uh, from the source account to the destination account, all from one form. And in this case, we use the funds transfer form and to accomplish that goal. Once we posted and released that transaction, we reviewed the general ledger account that was generated by the system. And then once we reviewed the general ledger account generated, we went over to the cash details form and took a look at the balances of the cash accounts, and we took a look uh, how the funds reflected there and whether they were a disbursement or a receipt, and yeah, and whether they were funds, whether the funds were a disbursement or a receipt. Okay, so let's just keep moving. And in the next portion, or as we come to the third section of our demonstration, we'll be talking about reconciling cash accounts. Okay, and so let's just go ahead back to our banking workspace. And in reconciling cash accounts, the one thing we'll be talking about, well, we talk about a few things, but um, we'll be using third party downloaded information. So that's basically a bank statement, credit card statement, point of sale statement. Uh, and so I'm saying that to say that the process that we'll go over right now in reconciling a cash account is the same process to reconcile credit card accounts, point of sale accounts. So in this case, the first portion will be to import a a bank statement. And so we've already done that. And so once you have your bank statement imported from the banking transaction under processes, we're going to open a new import bank transactions form. The first thing we need to do is specify the cash account we'll be reconciling. And this goes back to the preferences we set on the cash management preferences form in the beginning uh, of this demonstration when we took a look to um, see how the cash management preferences form was set up. And on the bank statements tab at the very bottom, we signify that a cash account must be entered before the importing of a bank statement. So here we are. We've entered the cash account. There's no need to, in most cases, to update the header section because the reason for uploading the file is that it should pull that information directly from the uploaded file. And so let's go ahead and choose our file as our bank statement. Let's go ahead and upload it. And so there you see our bank statement. And once it uploaded, you see, just like I said, the information that was pulled from the statement, uh, pulled in the statement date and its beginning and end balance date, and also an ending balance. Um, and in this case, there's no beginning balance. We are using what's called an open financial exchange format document, which in this case, it only lists transactions and not beginning and ending balances. In this case, it just cal- calculated receipt and disbursement and then created a calculated balance. That is then, in this case, used as the ending balance. And that is important because once we reconcile, in this case, uh, it has a beginning balance of zero because this is our first time reconciling this cash account. So moving forward, after the first process, similar to this, after the first processing of this bank statement, then moving forward, the preceding months, and for instance, in February, the beginning balance of February will be equal to the ending balance of January. Uh, so in that case, February's beginning balance, or if we were reconciling February, the beginning balance there would be 5,069, and then the ending balance would be the total of the bank statement that we import for February. Okay, so just a quick breakdown on why that is zero as the beginning balance and the ending balance. So now we have our bank statement imported, and we want to go ahead and start to process the transaction. So we'll select process transactions on the toolbar. You see the process bank transactions form opens, and on that form on the left side, it has the bank statement that we imported with all of our information. That's going to help us through the reconciliation process, like whether this was a receipt of cash or did we spend any cash, and where did the that payment go, or where did that receipt of cash, where did it originate from, and where should it go? Okay. And so something really nice about Acumatica over on the right side, it has the opportunity uh, for transactions that uh, may not have auto matched. You can then come over to the right side here of the process bank transactions and then match that transaction to a payment, to an invoice, or excuse me, to a payment or a number of payments, or an invoice or a number of invoices, or if no remittance information is available, you can basically then put the transaction onto the customer's account. And so we'll go over and we'll take a look at all of that. But you know what? I need to want to do something first. I'm sorry. Let's see here. And let's just exit back out. And I'm going to reload this document because I need to make some changes. And I already know what some of those changes are. So this is going to be the main change. And so let's save that. Okay, so now we have our bank file uh, imported. And so now let's start the process of going ahead and reconcile the bank account. So process transactions. Here we are, of course, into the process transactions form again. And so before we attempt to go through each line by line, trying to match an invoice, a payment, the first thing we'll do is along the toolbar, we'll select auto match, and this will allow the system to auto match the payments and disbursements of cash. And so let's just go ahead and select that. And you see in this case that Acumatica was able to very quickly match each payment. And in all honesty, our reconciliation, you see the system has operations, has completed, and you see that Acumatica has matched each payment, excuse me, payment and receipt of cash by those check boxes. And then we can also, and with that being said, we can go through and take a look at what the system matched those payments, uh, those receipts of cash or payments to. So in this case, we have the first line selected, and over to the right in the match payment and invoices tab, uh, we see that the system has found what it believes to be a match, and it automatically select the match checkbox, and you see that there, and it's matched to a payment because this was a receipt of cash. And so let's go to the next one, and you see here there's a match to payments, 90%, right? And then we want to take a look at it, and we say, okay, they do match for 560. Um, for office equipment, Squeeze Inc. is our customer, but of course we can dig deeper. But you see the match relevance, even though that amount is the same as that amount, but the system gives us the match relevance is more likely that this is the transaction that the system needs to match to. And as you go line by line, you can definitely take a look at and see the match relevance and see how uh, very easy and intuitive Acumatica is, and how very quickly we just were. I mean, we were able to uh, match the transactions. But of course, on this case, if there was a time that you could not, once again, match those transactions as we're going through, you can, from if there was a payment, in this case, uh, you know, we would attempt to match it to multiple invoices, and you see the system will bring up more and more invoices uh, for us to match to, or attempt to match to receipts and disbursements, or right, match to invoices, and then you see the the system brings up a plethora of opportunities. But in this case, we would narrow that down more if we had this many selections, because we know the system. I mean, the customer is good food, uh, so we would then come to the business account, select good food, and then now the parameters have been uh, refined even more. Uh, so there we have it. And you pretty much see the as we go through, each one has been matched, auto matched. And so now we've pretty much went through the bulk of very quickly. Oh, let's select this one. That, yeah, there we go. So we very quickly went through our import and matching of transactions during the reconciliation of a cash account. And so now we have everything matched. So the next thing will be to select process. And you see the system says the operation has completed. It gives us a green check mark along each transaction. And you see this bank transaction was processed, and it's letting us know each one was processed. Okay. And so in this case, say we wanted to review uh, some of these transactions, and we could, and let's just duplicate so we can take a look at it. And so let's say we wanted to, first of all, take a look at the this checking account, and we wanted to review the process transactions that happen. So how can we do that? So from the banking, um, under import bank transactions, let's open the actual form. Uh, that's the bank transaction we imported. Let's go ahead and select the reference number and open it. And we'll see here the status of all the items that are on the that were on the file that we uploaded. Has the let's open it up a little bit here. Process checkbox. So these have been processed. Okay. And so then let's go to banking, and let's take a look at the cash transactions form. And what we want to review is, there it is. the $50 interest earned that we processed. And then also, this is a $50 service fee that we processed early on. Okay. And then let's go to receivables and take a look at, there was a $720, no, excuse me, there was a $50 on that, on our reconciliation, there was a $50 refund. That was a disbursement of cash. So let's take a look at that. And that went to Candy Cafe. And so to do that, we'll come to receivables, payments and applications. And because we have the filter set, and I can definitely, uh, and let's just remove the quick filter and then we'll reapply it. And so we wanted to very quickly take a look at customer refunds. We come select type. We're going to add a quick filter. Let's clear all. I just want to see customer refunds. Okay. And there it is. The $50 customer refund that was on our bank statement. It was processed, and there it is. Okay, and so the last portion, so we took a look at, reviewing the transactions, and so now the final portion of the reconciliation is preparing the reconciliation statement. And so let's go ahead and start that process. And so to do that, we'll go in our banking. Let's go back to banking, reconciliation statements. Let's open a new one. And this reconciliation statement, of course, is for our key banking checking account. And we were reconciling for the month of January, so that reconciliation date is January 31. Okay. And so now let's go ahead and go through and we'll select the items that we reconciled. Oh, before we do that, let's enter our statement balance. And the statement balance is 5,069. That was the amount of our bank statement we imported. And so we have here 5,560, 230, and then we had a payment here for 415 and 500, the 724, the 201, 225. There was the $50 customer refund, Candy Cafe, the 307 here to Kakadu Cafe, and then there was a $15 bank service charge there. And we are over. Why are we over? We selected something. We're over about 230. And let's just go ahead and deselect these items and come back and see and complete our reconciliation. So let's go through the report I have here. And so we had 5,000 coming in. And then we had 560. And then the 230. Okay. And then the 415. And then 500. And what is exactly happening here? Okay, so let's just continue. So we have 5,000. We reconcile there. That is 500 and the 724 and 201 and 225. Okay. And then we have 50 and then 307 and then 15. And there we have it. And so now we've balanced. We see our reconcile balance and our statement balance is balanced. There's no difference. Uh, so that is always a good thing in a reconciliation. We've matched to our statement. So at this point, we'll remove the hold. Uh, Status is balanced. Reconciliation date, everything is suffice. Let's go ahead and release it. And there you have it. The system has, the operation has been completed. Here in the reconciliation statement, you see the status is closed. Let us know that this reconciliation has been done. And we can see the checkbox next to each item that was cleared and then reconciled. Uh, Here we can dig into, let's just take a look, the journal transactions that were created on the release. And so there you have it. The effects to the general ledger automatically posted. And there's our original document number for all of the preceding documents. And so there you have it. Okay. And so let's just talk about what just happened there. So we went through the process of reconciling cash accounts. And what we did there is we uploaded the bank statement to the system and processed the imported bank transactions by automatically matching them to the transactions in the system. Uh, we created missing documents. Well, we showed how to create missing documents for the transactions or match the transactions to any documents, existing documents manually. And so we went over how that process would work once we attempted to auto match. And then we needed to, in the case of the $724, uh, find a place to put that. And so then we created uh, an entry to process that. And then we went through and we paid attention to the effects on all of the different accounts from once we processed our bank transaction and released the transaction. And lastly, we created the reconciliation statement and released it. And from there, we see the status of the reconciliation status change to close. The reconciliation box to the left of the selected items on our bank statement that were reconciled were shown on that report. And so let's talk about what we covered in entirety. And so what we covered in entirety, first we talked about and demonstrated the processing of a cash entry. And we did that from the disbursement and receipt type. We also took a look at the effects of the general ledger batches that were created on release of cash entries of the disbursement and receipt type. We then went over the process of the funds transfer. And also we took a look at by using the funds transfer form, we can view the account balances and process the transfers of funds within one screen. And lastly, after we processed the funds transfer, we did go back and take a look at the account details to see the effects of the disbursement and receipt of cash from the different cash accounts, and then finally we reconciled our cash account, and we did that. We showed how very quick and easy it can be in Acumatica by importing a bank statement and then using the auto match feature, which then auto match more than 90% of the payments and receipts of cash, excuse me, the receipts and disbursement of cash. And from there, we were able to, of course, process those transactions and then go ahead and process the reconciliation statement. And by doing that, we made sure we completed the bank reconciliation of that cash account for the month of January. And so, with that being said, we've come to the final portion of our demonstration. As always, I thank you for your time. My name is Abdul McWhorter. I am a consultant here at GRF CPAs and Advisors. And this was my talk on cash management and reconciling cash accounts. And enjoy the remainder of your day. Thank you.